We have 5 properties we're going to look at. The first one is the commutative property, and it works for addition and multiplication. And I'm going to write it in 2 ways. One's with symbols, so like a plus b is equal to b plus a, where a and b just represent any number. A would be the same number every time you see an A, and B would be the same number wherever you see a B. So such as 5 plus 7 is the same as saying 7 plus 5. I can switch those numbers when I'm adding, and I get the same result. They both equal 12. This also works when I'm multiplying, and when I'm multiplying variables, I don't have to put a times sign in between. It's automatically implied. So A times B equals B times A. We can do it as 5 times 7 would be the same as 7 times 5. They both equal 35. Commutative property is one of the most popular properties that you're going to see and that we're going to be using. Our next one is the identity property. You use this a lot. You just probably haven't ever recognized it's the identity property. It gives you the number you started with as an answer. So it would be A plus something equals A. And the identity for addition is 0. Because if I add 0 to something, I still get what I started with, such as 5 plus 0 equals 5. I can also do this for multiplication, but my identity is not 0 there. So if I'm going to do A times something equals A, that has to be a 1. And so again, if I do it with a number, negative 3 times 1 equals negative 3. Identity and inverse, what's going to happen is that identity or inverse is going to be within the problem. If we look at inverse, inverse is how we get back to the identity. So our identity is an answer. So A plus negative A equals 0, or 3 plus negative 3 equals 0. So it's always going to equal whatever that identity is. If we're looking at multiplication, A times 1 over A would equal 1, because I'd end up with A divided by A, which would cancel out to be 1. So 8 times 1 over 8 would be 8 over 8, which equals 1. And that's what we'd be looking at the inverse property. So the difference between inverse and identity is where that 0 or 1 happens to be. Then we have our associative property. Our associative property is basically how the numbers associate with each other. It doesn't matter how I group them. So if I had A plus B plus C, and then if I added the first two together first and then added the second two together, I'd still get the same thing. So if we did 3 plus 4 plus 5, and we can show that that's the same as adding the 4 and 5 first. So here we have 7 plus 5, which is 12. And here we have 3 plus 9, which is 12. So that would work every single time. The numbers stay written in the same order. We just put the parentheses around different numbers. If we're looking at multiplication, it's this A times B times C is equal to A times B times C. So again, we're just moving the parentheses. And if we do our 3 times 4 times 5, we can see that in this case, 3 times 4 is 12, 12 times 5 is 60. If we do it the other way, 4 times 5 is 20, so we have 3 times 20, which is still 60. So associative property has parentheses on both sides, and the numbers are staying in the same order. Distributive property, we're going to come back to this in a day or two, and we're going to do a lot more with distributive property. Distributive property is where we're going to take a number outside the parentheses and multiply it or distribute it to everything within the parentheses. So that in this case, A times B, this would be A times B plus A times C. We're just really distributing that in. If we were looking at numbers, this would be 3 times 4 plus 3 times 7. And so if I look, this would be 3, I'm just going to kind of look at how this works. This is 33, and this ends up being 12 plus 21, which is still 33. So I can see that they equal the same. Sometimes there's some parentheses on both sides. Sometimes we just see it on the one. Again, when we practice more with this one, it'll be easier to identify. So those are your properties. You want to make sure you know where those are, can find them, and that they are also written in your notes book. I like to have them in the table of contents written just as properties, and then put this page in that sheet or in that notebook.